Hi, everybody. My name is Desmond DeVille, and for those of you who don't know, I'm a third-year mechanical and aerospace engineer. I'm the head of the membership involvement committee here at Virginia Motorsports, and we're the ones bringing you all this CAD workshop. It's a three-part series. The first week wasn't really part of the workshop just yet. It was just kind of getting you guys onto Fusion and getting you familiar with the very basic functions. I hope that those videos I sent out on Autodesk, that first of all you guys watched them and that they were helpful. I thought they were decent. And so in this workshop, I'm gonna show you guys just all these different functions up here. Not the 3D stuff so much, but all the 2D stuff in Fusion and just all the different functions within the sketch, how to make construction planes and dimension and constrain things. I hope that the information I provide you in this workshop will become second nature to you all, and it will just be sort of the basis, the backbone of everything that you do in CAD. A lot of the stuff that I teach in this workshop will be able to be carried over to other CAD platforms like SolidWorks or Inventor or anything else you can think of. There are others that I can't remember right now, but this will all become second nature to you. These skills that I'll show you are going to become invaluable as you progress in your CAD skills and move on to designing and making more complex things. So thank you for coming. I hope that you guys stick around for the entire video. I'll promise not to make it too long. And if you have any questions, you can come to my office hour, which I will announce in the Slack channel, and come to the next week's ones. They'll be going into further detail, further depth, and more complex designs and drawings and functions of Fusion. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm just going to start by creating a sketch. That's where we're going to learn most of our things in this workshop. So I'm going to go over here under Create and click on this thing with a plus that looks like a sketch. So I'm going to click on this. It's going to give me options to choose the plane that I want to draw the sketch in. I'm going to pick this one. Doesn't really matter right now. And I'm going to start with showing you guys all this stuff up here. So the basics, there's a create function where you're making new things on the sketch, like you're making new lines, rectangles, spheres, drawings, any of that stuff. You're dimensioning, you're adding things that weren't there before. In modify, you're changing things that were already there. In constraints, all these different things are modifying to a degree, but kind of different than modifying. And for inspect and all this stuff over here, these are just like your little tools that you can use as you're drawing and creating and modifying and constraining and all that stuff. So I'm going to start by showing you guys all the stuff that's in here. We'll get to most of this, not all of it. Not all of it is completely relevant to the vast majority of the work that we'll be doing, but I'm going to start with a line. So you can make a line by clicking L on your keyboard or by just clicking on this icon over here. So I'm going to click on this. To make a line, you click anywhere and you drag to the length and you click again to end the line. And if you don't hit escape or you hit line again, you can just keep making lines that will connect from the endpoint of your previous line. And I'm going to keep making lines because why not? And now I have a closed shape. I'm going to get rid of this because this is all just for demonstration purposes. So to get rid of things easily, just drag your mouse, make a big box over it. Once it's all highlighted, you can just hit backspace or delete. So yeah, now I'm going to show you guys rectangles. So in rectangles, there are three different ways to make them. I don't know why my computer's acting up. Hello, come on. Okay, so there's a 2-point rectangle. You draw it from one corner, you drag down to the other, and that will set your height and width. So now I have this kind of rectangle. Let's delete that because I don't want that too many things crowding up my screen. Gonna go back into rectangle. I'm gonna make a 3-point rectangle. Same sort of thing, except for now you're starting out with the first dimension. So I'm gonna go like this, and then you drag out after you made that first line to make the length or width of your rectangle. Now I have a nice big rectangle. Let's get rid of that. And I'm going to show you guys one more rectangle. So the first two are fairly often used. Center rectangles aren't used as often, but they are helpful when you want the middle of your rectangle constrained to a certain point, because with a center rectangle, you're starting with a point in the middle, and then you're just dragging out one of the corners. You can drag out any of the corners, as you can see. It just depends on where you place your mouse. And you can drag them out to set the height and width. Then you just click again, and boom, you have a rectangle with these nice little construction line crosshairs going through the middle to show you just where your center point is. So let's get rid of that. Now I'm going to move on to circles. Circles are also very important. I'll show you guys most of these. I'll show you them all. Why not? So center diameter circle, same sort of thing as center point rectangle. You just start with the center point, drag it out. So you're setting your center point and your radius, or diameter, which is what circles are. They're just a center point and a diameter, as you guys have learned in calculus or geometry or whatever. So now I have a circle like this. They're all going to look the same. They're just made differently. So let's go back to circle. Let's go to 2-point circle. So I'm going to start on 1 point. I'm going to drag out to make the diameter. This one's completely diameter set, but it's going to look the same as every other one because a circle, all a circle is a center point and a diameter. So they're all going to look very similar. Let's get rid of that. Let's make another circle. Let's go 3-point circle. This one's similar, except for this time you're going to drag over here, and then you're going to drag it to make your 3rd point. So the first 2 points are just 2 points that are always going to be touching your circle no matter what. And you can drag this other point here to set your diameter and sort of the position of your circle. Even though once you have a circle like this, you can just click on it and drag it anywhere, or drag the size anywhere, drag the middle anywhere, as long as it's not constrained. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, you can tell if things aren't constrained, or I should say not constrained fully, if they're still blue at all. So you see this is blue, this is blue. It's all blue because it's not constrained. We'll go into constraints after I finish showing you guys all the different create functions and modifies. So there's a few more circles. These aren't as important, but you got to have some lines to do them. So let's make 2 lines. Actually, let's make 3, because 3 are going to be important at some point. I'll make 1 more, and now I have 3 lines. Let's start by making a circle that is tangent to 2 of the lines. It's just a 2 tangent line. You're going to draw it out like this. You're going to click on this line, and then you have a circle that's always going to be tangent to those 2 lines no matter what. You can drag it anywhere, and no matter what, it'll always be tangent to those 2 lines. And as you can see, I'm dragging it beyond those lines because these lines are finite, but this is postulating that the lines are infinite. So if you drag it all the way out here, it's like these lines extended. It's like these lines extended all the way out to there. As you can see, moving the lines, even though they're not connected, still changes the circle. So let's get rid of this thing, and I'll show you guys one more circle. So this is the 3 tangent circle. You see I have 3 lines. You select 3 different lines. Come on. And it'll give you a circle that's tangent to all 3 of them. This one you can't move nearly as much because the 3 lines are more constraining than just 2 lines, and it'll mess things up a lot, but it can be helpful sometimes. I've never personally used it, but it's good to just know about, you know. So now that I can get rid of these. What else can I show y'all? Oh, I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of those. Let's undo that. So now I have these 2 lines. I'm going to show you guys arcs. So there are 3 different types of arcs. They're all very useful. Sorry about the noise in the background. There's a train going by. But a 3-point arc, very simple. You select the 2 endpoints of your arc, and then you drag out the middle point to define the radius of that arc that you're making. And as you can see, arcs are similar to circles in that they will define a center point of that arc and then a radius. So arcs are the same thing as circles, except for they are less, like the entire degrees of them, where a circle would be 2 pi or 360. An arc is less than 2 pi or less than 360. So let's undo that. I'll show you guys 2 more types of arcs. So we have the center point arc. Same sort of thing. You select center point, you select another point, and then you drag it out, and that just creates all that. So I could have set, let me show you that again. I could have set the center point to be anywhere that I wanted it to be. I can put it here, I'll connect it to there, and I'll just move it out like that, and it'll make that sort of arc like that. But as you can see, the arc is always constrained, or always limited, I should say, by the radius and the center point. So if the center point isn't right in the middle or isn't compatible with being the complete width of the arc that you want, then the radius won't be able to stretch that far. I hope that makes sense. It's a bit confusing, but it's simple. The more you play with this sort of stuff, the more you'll get used to it. Put one more line back just so I can keep showing you guys arcs. There's one more. This one, I think I use more than center point, but less than 3 point. I think 3 points the most useful. But for this, you're going to select a point, then you're going to select another point, and then, as you can see, it's tangent to the first line that or to the point that I selected first. It's tangent to that point's line. It's not tangent to this one. I can make it tangent to that one if I wanted to, but we'll get into that in a second. Let's get rid of that. Not sure if there's anything more I want to show you guys. Actually, I'll show you one more thing. There's point. Point is useful if you just want to place a point somewhere to help define things or dimension off of different points that you don't have. You can place points anywhere that you want. They don't have to be on anything, but they can be very useful for different tasks that you might have. So I'll go into modify now. Let's bring those lines back. I have 3 now for some reason. It's not what I wanted. Let's get rid of these constraints. I'll show you guys those in a second. Okay, now we have 2 lines. Now I'm going to connect them actually, so I can show you guys these tools up here. So I'm going to make a fillet. Filleting is just rounding off a point or a corner to be more round, I guess. I already said it in the definition. So with a fillet, fillets are very important because, you know, they can, first of all, be better for design. Like, you don't always want sharp corners and sharp edges on things for whatever reason. You can come up with any number of reasons for why you might not want those. But they're also very important because when water jetting parts, which you're going to water jet a lot of things if you become involved in motorsports and if you're machining in life, the water jet, no matter what, will always make some sort of rounded edge where a point or a corner used to be, because that's just how the water jet works. So to sort of get ahead of the curve or to eliminate that from happening, you can make your own fillet, and the water jet will be able to accommodate that very nicely. So for a fillet, you can select 2 lines like that, or you can just select a point like this, and then you define the radius. Let's make it 2 inches because why not? And fillets are very similar to circles and arcs in that they will just give you a center point and the arc, because it's just a center point and a radius. So yeah, now that we have that, let's connect these 2 points here. Now we have this shape. I'm going to show you guys this offset tool. Actually, no, I'm going to show you trim first. So yeah, let's put 2 points. Actually, no, I'll just leave it like this. So I'm going to show you guys trim. Trim, you can select any line segment of any point and have it just cut away from your piece. So I'm going to select this line, and as you can see, well, that kind of messed things up because it got rid of the dimensions that used to be there. I'm going to undo that. Let's get rid of this one because that won't mess anything up. So as you can see, it just gets rid of that line. It will, as I showed you previously, get rid of any constraints or dimensions that were present before. So you want to be careful when you're trimming. Finally, in the modify section, I'll show you guys offset. Offset is just kind of shrinking the line, the curve that you have, the shape that you have, to be larger or smaller. So I can move this thing to make it larger, smaller, and as you can see, it stays to scale each time. So I don't know, let's make it positive offset of 1.5 or 1.567 inches. I want 1.5 because 1.5 is a nicer number. So yeah, now you can see there's the same sort of thing going on. These points are still collinear, and I have the same sort of profile. It's just shrunken in by 1.5 inches. So that's offset. It's very useful for different things when you want to make like a hollow part. You can see the offset by this marker right here. So now I'll start showing you guys all the different constraints. Constraints are very important because without constraints and dimensions, I'll show you guys dimensions while I'm showing you guys constraints. Showing you guys constraints and dimensions is very important because it can help to it's how you define your part and how you make it a clean, good drawing. Like you don't want a blue design or drawing that you have, because then anybody could accidentally just drag it and change a bunch of stuff, and it's all just up to whatever's going on at that point. Like when you want things constrained, you want things dimensioned, you want things in place. So yeah. Um, Actually, I missed one thing. Let's go back to create. I'll move on to constraints in a second. So I'm going to show you guys mirror, because I forgot to show you guys mirror. So I'm also going to show you guys construction lines while I'm at it. So for a construction line, let me preface this by saying construction lines are very important. They're not actually a part of your drawing, but they're very important because they can help to make references off of different things. So I'm going to make this construction line right here along the axis, like that. I'm going to constrain it to the origin. I'll get more into that in a second. But now I have this construction line that's right on this green axis right here. It's not moving anywhere. It's completely constrained except for the length, but the length doesn't really matter for this case. And I'm going to show you guys mirror. So mirror, I'm going to select all of this and all of that and this, because that wasn't selected for some reason. And I'm going to mirror about this one. So for mirror, you select your objects that you want mirrored, and then you select the line or axis that you want the objects mirrored about. So I'm going to select this line in the middle. As you can see, it just flipped this thing over that axis, and now I have another example of it on the right side. Both are still non-constrained because the original wasn't constrained or dimensioned, but I have two of them on either axis now, and this can be very helpful for when you're creating parts that are symmetrical in some way. Yeah, cool stuff. Let's get rid of all this. All right, let's just show you guys dimensioning, because I just kind of brushed right over dimensioning. So with lines, dimensioning is very easy. Let's bring this back out of construction. So dimensioning is very easy. You hit this icon, sketch dimension, or you can hit D on your keyboard. And as you can see, depending on where I drag it, it's going to dimension different things. So right now it's dimensioning the actual length of this line. Like this, it's dimensioning the height. So like, parallel to the green axis. And like this, it's dimensioning the width parallel to the red axis. So this gets into some kind of geometry stuff, but all of these dimensions have their place and their uses in designing and drawing. So I'm just going to dimension it like that, but I could also have dimensioned it with angles or anything like that. Let me just show you guys an angle dimension. So make another line like this. They don't have to be connected to make an angle, but you hit D or dimension and you can select both lines, and now I have this angle going on right here, and I can set that angle to anything that I want, and it will change the second one that I select. So real quick, with constraining and dimensioning, you always want to make sure that you're going to change the part that you want to change. When you're usually going to select two different things, and the first one you select is the part that's going to stay fixed, and the second one is going to be the part that's going to change based on your dimensioning or your constraining. So always keep that in mind, but don't worry about it too much. Things can be remedied and changed fairly easily, as you'll come to see. So as you can see with this angle dimension right here, the lines don't have to be connected, but they can be connected. Like, come on, or I'll just go like this, like this. See, now they're connected. I can still change this dimension to be whatever I want. Let's make it 45 degrees. And yeah, now they're nice, now they're the same. I'll do one more thing. Let's get rid of this dimension. We don't really need it. Let's get rid of this one too. We don't need that either. I'm gonna put a circle in here somewhere just to show you guys. I don't want construction anymore. Let's turn construction off. So now I have this circle, and I'm going to show you guys just how to dimension the circle. You can click on the outer edge. If you already have it selected, it'll just dimension it for you, and then it'll ask for the diameter that you want, and I'm just going to make it 6 inches because it's a nice number, so why not? And now I have the circle is nice and dimensioned, but as you can see, just because it's dimensioned doesn't mean it's completely constrained, because I can still move it around. So we'll get into more constraining later. And finally, how you dimension a rectangle. Say I have this rectangle right here. You can dimension it like this, and then you dimension the next side, and then you have a nice dimensioned rectangle. If you wanted to make them the same length, you could go like this. You could edit this one, and then you could just click on this one, and it would just set it to be the same thing as that first dimension, no matter what. So now it's a square, and this goes for everything. So if I wanted to change this dimension to be the same as this circular dimension over here, it doesn't matter what shape, it just matters the value. So I can click on this one, and it will just it will change that entire square to be the same height and width of the diameter of the circle. That sort of dimension functioning thing, you can see this little function symbol, is very useful. It can come in handy when you have many similar shapes or lines or figures on your drawing, and you'll use it more than you think you will in the future. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I don't want this rectangle anymore, this square, so let's get rid of it. Yeah, delete. And what else can I show you? Oh yeah, I can show you how to dimension an arc. So let's just make an arc like this, not for any real reason, and I can click on dimension, click on the line here, and it will show you, it will give me the radius. As you can see, there's this center point that was created when I made the arc, and I can just dimension the radius to be 9 inches, I don't know. And it will always keep the center point in the same spot, but then shrink the outer edge. So that's how you dimension an arc. Let's get rid of the arc. I don't want the arc. Now I can get into showing you guys all these different constraints. So the first thing is this horizontal or vertical constraint. So this is horizontal constraining, is constraining a line, or yeah, it's always a line, to be exactly parallel with the horizontal axis, in this case the red one. The vertical constraint will make any line exactly parallel to the green axis. Using this constraint won't fix those lines to that axis, they will just it will just make sure that the lines are parallel wherever they are. So when you use this constraint, like if the line is closer to being vertical than it is to being horizontal, then using this constraint will make that line vertical. Same thing, if the line is closer to being horizontal than it is to being vertical, then it will make the line horizontal. So I'll show you guys. Now that line is horizontal, and I can do the same thing with this one. Now that line is vertical, because this one before, see, was closer to being vertical than it was to being horizontal. So when I clicked on this one, it just made it vertical for me, which is nice. This is very handy for making square uniform things, or just making flat things, because you always want to reference off of the origin or off of the axes, not so much off of other things if you can help it. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but for the most part, you should try to avoid that. So let's get rid of these. I don't really need them right now. We can keep these lines like that. I want that angle for some reason. So I'm gonna move this whole fixture over there. Next one, coincident. It's just connecting 2 points. Very useful. So if I want, let's say, this point in the circle to be connected to the origin, I would just click on this point and then click on the origin, and it would fix that circle to the origin. And as you can see, because I dimensioned the diameter and fixed the position of the circle, it is now fully constrained. It's black, it's not blue anymore. Black always means fully constrained, and black is a good thing because you want full constraints on whatever drawing you have. You don't want your drawing to be under constrained, because then, as I showed you before, things can change too easily. And one more thing, the origin is always a great place to start, because you don't really want to fix things off of other things, and the origin is always a constant. It's always going to be there. And if you change anything else, like if I were to change the dimension of this line, or I guess of that angle, um, then it wouldn't change the circle. It wouldn't change anything there because the circle only relies on the origin, and the origin will always stay fixed. So yeah, let's get into tangent. Let's get rid of this constraint down here. To delete constraints, you can just, it should be coming up, it's not. Is it showing constraints? It should be. Anyway, I'll just get rid of this circle. So let's make another circle because I want a circle. So now we have the circle. To show you guys tangent, you guys know what tangent lines are. They're just making a line or a point tangent to a circle. That just means that the line will only intersect that circle at one point on its circumference, on its outer edge. So to make anything tangent, you just click on the circle that you want something to be tangent to, and you click on the line, and it will always move the second thing that you click on. So if I were to have clicked on the line first and then clicked on the circle, or I guess it didn't move it, I don't know. But usually when you're doing things, it might be different for tangent, but the first thing that you select will stay put, and the second thing that you select will be the one that moves. But yeah, as you can see, this line is now tangent to the circle. Nice and good like that. Let's make this one tangent to this circle as well. And now it is tangent, but it looks kind of weird because it's not connected. But this works because it is assuming that the line shown here is only a discrete part of an infinite continuous line. So if I were to move this back here, the line and circle are still tangent, but the part of the line that you can see is part of the line that you can see isn't connected, doesn't mean it's not tangent. So now we have these lines and the circle, nice and tangent. Let's do another thing. So the equal, I don't want this coincident constraint. So the equal constraint is just making two different things the same size. So you can use this for almost anything. Most people just use it for lines, but I'll show you guys for lines first. So you're gonna click on the equal constraint, then you can click on the first line, click on the second line, and it will change the second line to be the same length as the first line that you clicked on. So now these two lines are the same length, but as you can see, the constraints for tangent that I had are still there because new constraints can sometimes clash with old constraints, but if you're doing the right things and thinking about what you're doing properly, then your constraints shouldn't interfere with your previously made constraints. So yeah, I'll show you guys one more thing. If I wanted to have another circle over here that's clearly larger than the first one, and I wanted them to be the same size, I would just click on this circle, then click on that one, and it's going to shrink the second one I clicked on to be the same size as the first one. Same thing would have happened if I clicked on the first one, then on the bigger one first, clicked on the smaller one second, it would change them to be this one's more constrained, it's going to change that one. So let's get rid of that circle, don't want it here. Next thing, show you guys the parallel constraint. That's just going to make these two, or the parallel constraint will make any lines parallel to each other. It's pretty self-explanatory. You select two lines and they become parallel. See, they're nice and parallel to each other. There's the angle between them is 180 degrees because they're parallel, or 0 degrees, or however you want to think about it. So yeah, these are now parallel, but the parallel constraint, for instance, will clash with the perpendicular constraint. Like I can't select these two and make them perpendicular because they're already parallel, and this little X will come up in the corner and tell me that it failed to solve. So if I want to make these two perpendicular, just get rid of that parallel constraint, and I can click on the two lines and make them perpendicular. And as you can see, the two lines are still tangent, nothing's fighting, it's all happy. I'm going to skip over the fix-unfix constraint and jump to the midpoint. Let's say I wanted these two lines, these two lines to intersect at their midpoints. I can do this because the two lines are under an equal constraint right now, this one right here. So to use this, I can click on this line, then that one, and they will now intersect at the midpoint of each other. But let's undo that. If I if I wanted, like if these two lines were not under an equal constraint and were not the same length, then it would matter the order that I clicked on each line. So I'm doing midpoint, I'm going to select this one first, then select that one, and it moved the second one to the midpoint of the first one, just as we expected. But now they're not the same length anymore, so I can change, excuse me, sorry, I can change the length of the line and it will still be midpoint. Come on. Yeah, see, there we go. And it will still be they'll still be connected at the midpoint of each other. So yeah, all good stuff. Let's get rid of that. I don't want that there anymore. Come on. There we go. Actually, let's go back to being parallel. So another thing is the concentric constraint. Let's say I have another circle here, just over here, and I want it to be concentric with this circle. I'm going to click on the concentric constraint, click on this first one, click on the second one. It's going to move the first circle I clicked on to be concentric with the second one. Concentric just means that they share a center point, and as you can see, they do. Both lines share this point in the middle right there, or both circles, sorry. And finally, or not finally, but these two aren't nearly as important as others are. So the collinear constraint, very important. Let's say I have this line over here and I want it to be in line with one of these other lines. I'm going to click on the collinear constraint. It's going to click on this one and then that one. And it's just going to change the first one I clicked on to be in the same line as this one. I can use a construction line to show you just how I mean that these two lines are indeed collinear by connecting these two intermediate points. And as you can see, this line becomes parallel to that line because this one is collinear to this one. So I don't need that construction line anymore, and I don't need this one actually. So I'll show you guys fix, unfix for a second. Fix, unfix can be useful in 3D, but in 2D it's less useful because, as I've mentioned before, you want things to be constrained and dimensioned off of the origin rather than off of nothing or off of each other. And fixing, unfixing just kind of makes something stay right where it is. So as you can see now, I can't move this line anywhere because it's fixed in the position that it's at. The line will turn green, meaning that it's fixed, and you don't really want that. It's not the best way to draw. I hope I've given sufficient reason for why. You'll just have to trust me. It's much better to design and draw based on the origin and not based on just random space. So yeah, I've got these two lines here. I think I've shown you guys decent amounts of constraint. Let's see if there's anything that I missed. I can show you guys project and include in a second. I think I've shown you guys everything that I want to show you here. So finally, in the sketch toolbar that I am in right now, you can use the inspect tool, and underneath it is measure. You can also just click I on your keyboard. It might not work for everybody, but for this you can just select anything. It will give you the length of that selection. I can select another thing. It will give me the length of the second selection, both the same because they were equal at one point and they just kind of stayed that way. It will also give me the angle between them, which is 0 degrees. If I had another line, let's close out of this. If I had another line that was obviously at an angle to one of these lines, I could use the inspect tool to find out the angle between these, and it's 5.478 degrees. This is just postulating whether, like, if this line were to extend to this one, two lines don't have to be connected for you to find an angle between them. There's always going to be an angle between any two lines, no matter where they are and whether they're connected or not. So yeah. And you can also use inspect to just, find out whether, like, the length of any curve. It'll give you the length of that whole circle, give you the radius, the diameter. If I had some weird shape like that, you can select multiple things at once or multiple angles within a closed shape like this. So that'll give me the angle. This will give me the angle between that, the angle between those, the distances as well. All very useful things. Inspect comes in handy when you're working on something, but you just want information about the thing that you've already made. You don't want to change it necessarily. So I think I've shown you guys all the good stuff here. I'm going to show you guys how to fully constrain something by constraining this thing right here, this weird shape thing that I've made. So first of all, just because I want to, I'm going to constrain this center point to the origin. Now I'm going to use some dimensions. I'm going to dimension the inner circle to make it 5 inches. I like nice numbers. And let's make these two lines equal right here. Did I do that already? Yeah, I did that already. Okay, that's what these two things are. And let's make them parallel because I want to. Now they're nice and parallel. Now I can dimension one of these lines. I'll dimension the actual length of the line and not one angle of the length. And let's make it 36 inches, nice and 3 feet. And now both of those lines are length constrained, but they're not place constrained, I should say. So let's make a construction line that goes through the origin and that is on the horizontal axis. So let's constrain that line to the origin. Now it's nice and constrained. Now I can define this line at an angle from that construction line. So now I have this nice angle, and that will constrain both of those lines because those lines are equal. They have the equal length and they're both tangent to that circle, and I'm dimensioning this angle. Let's make it 15 degrees. And yeah, now all I have to do is constrain this circle. I'm going to constrain it based on this dimension because that was a thing that we've gone over. I'm going to select dimension, click on the outer circle, and I'm going to set it like this. Let's say I do want it to be 12. I want it to be a foot in diameter. I'm going to select this one and just say +7. It'll always be 7 inches more than that one. If I wanted it to be 12 inches at all times, I could always just set this to be 12 instead of being a function of something else. But because we've gone over functions within dimensions, I figured I would do that. So yeah, now as you can see, everything is black, meaning it's all constrained, and I can't click on anything and move it anywhere. And well, I can do that, I guess, but that doesn't really matter. I can actually, yeah, this is kind of a bad drawing because I can still move things places. Let's say I wanted everything to be completely fixed and not move like this. Let's say I want these 2 points here to be collinear. They're on the same line, and that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Let's draw a line between here and here. Let's draw a line between here and here. And now, come on. Let's just make these 2 lines here parallel because that will make this a nice rectangle. And now I'm going to dimension the angle between here and here. Let's say I want it to be 85 degrees. No, let's make it 80 degrees. I want a parallelogram. Now these 2 points here are fixed in space. Now all I have to do is, because I can still do something, can't I? Yeah, I can still drag it back and forth this way. One thing I haven't mentioned, a good way to tell if something isn't completely constrained the way that you want it to is to click on it and move it around. And if it still moves in any direction, that direction can help you figure out how it's not constrained. So for this, I can dimension one of these points from the origin, and I want it to be 18 inches away from the origin, and now everything is constrained. It won't move. You can tell because these construction lines are blacked out and they're not orange anymore. So yeah, that's how everything's constrained. I hope I've gone over everything within the sketch toolbar to a sufficient degree. We're going to finish the sketch and exit out into the 3D realm now, where I can show you guys some more of the things up here. First of all, let's say I want this thing to be, we'll go over extruding later. I'm going to go over all the different construction ways that you can make construction things now. So offset plane, you can just select any one of these given planes, or you can just select the sketch that you have, because the sketch is obviously on a plane, it's only 2D. And you are given this little option with this arrow. You can drag the arrow any which way, and it will set how far away from that first selection your new plane will be. It'll give an offset. That's why it's called an offset plane. say I want it to be 2 feet, 24 inches. Now I have this new plane. To make a new sketch on that plane, you can just click on that new plane that you made and boom, you have a sketch. And now you're in the sketch plane that's offset from that original one. And while I'm here, I can show you guys project and intersect. Project and intersect is, I'll show you project first. So project is if you have something that is facing your plane, or like you want part of that sketch in this plane, I can click on that old sketch and it will project it onto this new sketch that I have here. So it's like, at a movie theater, the camera is projecting something onto the screen. Think of the old sketch as the camera and the new sketch as the screen, and whatever you click on is what's going to be projected by the camera onto that new screen. So yeah, now I have this nice circle. I have the point, I have the outer dimension, so everything's all good. So yeah, we have that. Let's finish that sketch. And I'm going to show you guys some other planes. So plane at an angle, I can select any line in any one of these sketches and it will just make a plane at that angle. So let's make it 75 degrees because why not? As you can see, the plane is now at a 75-degree angle from that line right there. So it's not flush with this sketch because that sketch is, because the plane is 15 degrees different or 75 degrees different depending on how you look at it from the original sketch. And yeah, while we're here, I can show you guys how to intersect. So make a new sketch. As you can see, parts of my other sketch intersect this new sketch that I have going on here. And I can go over to create, project, include, click on intersect, and I can click on any of these things, and if they intersect my new sketch, then they will show up in my new sketch. So as you can see, this circle has 2 points that connect with this new sketch. This line is because I referenced the construction plane off of that line. It's completely in this new sketch, and I think that's about it. So actually I might be able to do this one. Yeah, so now I have some points and it will give me those points and that line, and now I have everything in this sketch that intersected with the other sketch. Let's finish that. So now I have some weird things going on. Doesn't really matter what's going on, but this is all just for learning purposes. To demonstrate the tangent plane, I'm going to extrude this thing real quick. Extruding is very simple. It's just turning something 2D into something 3D by just dragging out its profile and giving it a thickness. So I'm going to make it 10 inches. I'll make it 6 inches thick. So now it's 6 inches thick, and I can make a tangent plane to this face. Tangent plane, same sort of idea as a tangent constraint. And I can, by setting the angle will change where the plane is on the circle. So if I wanted to make it at 180 degrees, it would just be right there. And it all depends on where you first selected it. It doesn't really matter. You can reference off of other things that you've had. We don't need that thing anymore. And now I can show y'all how to do a midplane by selecting this face here and by selecting this face here, because those faces are only 2D, so faces are always on planes, and that will give me a plane that's right in the middle of those two faces, which is right here. And you can of course draw something new on any of these sketches and planes that I'm making. You can make a new sketch on any of these planes that I'm making, and making planes like this can help you make a more complex part, and things like that will be covered in further depth in future weeks videos. So plane through two edges, there's always going to be, with a plane is only 2D, so it only requires 3 points or 2 edges for it to be completely defined. So I'm going to edit, actually, let's go back to construction to show us the planes that we've made. I'm going to use this sketch, or this plane, sorry, make a new sketch. I'm just going to put a line, doesn't really matter. It's not going to be defined because I'm not going to define it for now. This is just for demonstration purposes. Actually, always define something, good practice. So plane through two edges, I'm going to select this line right here. I'm going to select this line right there. Actually, I'll just do or this one. The lines have to be, I should have mentioned, the lines have to be parallel to some degree, because as you can see, you can't make a plane that twists, because planes have to be flat. So now I have a new plane. It's the same one as the old one, and it goes through these two edges, and yeah, that's it for that. There are a few more I can show you. Plane through 3 points. Let's use that line that I made that I didn't use before, and click on this point here. This is being temperamental. Click on that point and click on this point. And the points can be anywhere, because points are just points. The plane will always meet to include those 3 points. And now I have this plane that has those 3 points within it. And if I wanted to, I could, go into this plane, make a new sketch, and include all those points that I used to make the plane. That's would be the origin, I guess. And then these, and then yeah, I have 3 points in this new plane, and those points are connected to other sketches that I had drawn previously. Alright, let's exit from this mess. I think I'm good showing you guys all of this stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's delete all this. Don't need any of that anymore. And let's roll the time marker back. I'm gonna just delete all features after history marker. A good thing with Fusion is it has this scroll bar for time on the bottom, and it allows you to just go back and forth in time for the things that you've been working on and been doing in your design, in your drawing. So I'm going to select to delete everything after the history marker. So it's just going to give me a nice clean slate. And now we can make the little part that had been part of the curriculum for this. So same thing as before, make a sketch off of this plane, and we're gonna make a car. So first of all, just gonna make a nice rectangle, like that. Actually, you know what? Let's make a center point rectangle, because I want the rectangle to be centered on the origin. I'm making a mess out of this, I'm sorry. So center rectangle, click on the origin, just drag it out. Let's say I want it to look like that. Let's give it a dimension on either side. 18, sure. Let's make this 16. Well, I'll make it 15. And now I'm just going to give it some wheels. This is the cabin. Going to give it some wheels. Let's make them little 12-inch steelies or something. I have no idea. I'm just talking at this point. Let's dimension them off of each other. Let's make this 12. Let's make this 12. And actually, that's messy. Let's go like this. Let's edit this one so that it's the same as this one at all times. Yeah, so we don't have any offset wheels, even though that's good sometimes. Here, I don't want it. So let's make the front on the left side. I'm going to start the hood from the middle. See, the triangle comes up, meaning that I'm selecting the midpoint of this line right here. I'm going to select that. I'm going to go down a bit to make this sloped hood. I'm going to go down to here. It's going to go and connect it to there. And we're going to make this vertical. How is it? Oh, it's because this constraint was just added for no reason. So we're going to make this vertical, make that horizontal, and I'm going to dimension this angle here based on this, and I'm going to give it, let's make it, yeah, 95 degrees sounds good. Now I'm just going to dimension the length of this front hood. Let's make it, I feel like it should be shorter than the cabin. Let's make it 17 inches. So yeah, now we have a hood. Now I'm going to give it a rear. Same starting point, because I like cars that have nice lines, Going to stretch it out to there, bring it down to here, go like that. And now same sort of thing, vertical, horizontal. Now I'm just going to dimension, or let's figure out which one, or what I have to dimension here by using the old drag feature and figuring out what's not constrained. The part that isn't constrained, if you haven't guessed, is the width of this line, the length of this line, or the distance that the complete rear of the car is from the body of the car, like the cockpit, the greenhouse. So I'm gonna dimension the length of this, make it 12 inches. Yeah, and now we have this wacky looking car. I'm gonna give it a little spoiler because this is a cool car, and dimension that to be 5 inches, and then dimension the, I'll do the bottom width because that will dimension the entire triangle for me. Let's make it 1.5. And now we have a spoiler. I'm gonna finish the sketch, and we have a nice car. And real quick, I'm just gonna show you guys how to extrude it to make it look like more of a little trinket that you might have. Select all the areas that you want extruded. I want the entire shape extruded, so I'm gonna select all the areas until they're all blue. I'm gonna stretch it out 1 inch, let's say. And now, as you can see, if you rotate around, it's 1 inch thick and quite large. I made quite a big little thing. It looks kind of dumb. It's okay. So yeah, I think I've covered everything I wanted to show you guys. Um, yeah, that should be it. If you have any questions, please come to my office hour. Feel free to mess around with Fusion on your own and um, make your own car, add fillets to it, add windows to it, add different wheel designs to it, design it completely different. Always keep in mind that fillets are good for water jetting for the reasons I've mentioned before. Like, the water jet's going to make a fillet no matter what. Might as well make one yourself. And yeah, please come to me with any questions. If you can't come to the office hour, just message me on Slack. And please come to the future workshops. Thank you again.